Victoria Annie Elizabeth Cafasso was born on June 8, 1975, in Surrey, England, on a rainy day. Her mother, Sofia, was Italian and ran a successful travel agency, and her father, Marco, was English and a lawyer with a brilliant mind. He hoped that his daughter would one day follow in his footsteps. From the start, Victoria's life was a blend of culture and promise. Victoria was born in England, but she spent much of her youth in Italy, where she developed a strong connection to her mother's native country. Having dual citizenship in both the UK and Italy showed how mixed up her identity was. Fluent in Italian, English, and French, she was not only academically talented but also socially competent, respected for her curiosity, grace, and intelligence. People who knew her in Italy said she was a smart young woman with her father's analytical intellect and her mother's free personality. Sofia would often take Victoria on trips to beautiful villages in Italy, which helped her adventurous side grow. Marco taught her about law, justice, and ethics through conversations. He taught her things that were useful in both literature and real life. Victoria went to a well-known Italian institution to study law, just like her father did. Her brilliance and academic devotion gained her acclaim from lecturers and classmates alike. She immediately became renowned as a top student, polished in argument, precise in analysis, and empathetic in comprehending the human consequences of legal processes. Yet even as her studies progressed, there simmered inside her rising wanderlust. The world beckoned. The more she studied, the more she realized that life was too short to remain restricted to textbooks and lecture rooms. Exploration called, a pull she couldn't quite silence. At roughly 20 years old, Victoria sat her parents down. With honesty and clarity, she expressed her intent. She wanted to journey to England, to reunite with her father's family, especially her grandparents, who were growing elderly, and then to travel further, possibly even to far-off regions. Marco felt torn. Proud of his daughter's spirit but mindful of risks overseas, especially in foreign countries, he voiced modest anxiety. Sofia, ever the enabling spirit, backed Victoria's decision to see the globe. Ultimately, she and Marco agreed, understanding it as a coming-of-age move Victoria had to take. Their blessing held love and anguish. The contact with cousin Simon landing back in England seemed familiar yet remote to Victoria. Even though she'd lived there short previously, time had transformed the house. Her grandparents welcomed her kindly. Soon after, she sought out to her distant cousin, Simon Howard Dealise, a relative she'd met only twice in childhood, who now resided in Tasmania, Australia. Their correspondence, usually over telephone, was brief and enthusiastic. Simon, drawn to Victoria's warmth and adventure, eagerly offered to entertain her on his little leased home near a beach town in Tasmania. Far away but full of potential, the island state called with its rough beauty and mystery. Victoria wasted little time. She booked her flight and shortly, boarding pass in hand, went for the other hemisphere. On October 6, 1995, Victoria arrived in Tasmania after a long journey from England via Melbourne. At the airport, Simon welcomed her cordially, clasping her hand in greeting. A mutual friend joined them. The trio headed off for Simon's cottage, nestled in a coastal community of roughly a few hundred people, a mix of fishermen, retirees, and surfing fanatics. En route, they paused at Shirley's Lookout, a hilltop outlook overlooking the vast sweep of the ocean and the tranquil Bairnsdale beach below. It was here that Victoria first encountered locals, including a woman named Hilda Jackson. Hilda remembers the meeting vividly. Victoria's soft voice, compassionate gaze, and inquiring questions about life in Tasmania left a lasting effect. They chatted, initial pleasantries about the scenery, introductions about their origins. Hilda was startled by Victoria's real interest and the startling likeness in their features. To Hilda, it was as if she was staring in a mirror, lovely, thoughtful, and kind, she later noted, forging the initial tie between them. That nightfall, Victoria, Simon, and their companion arrived at the tiny cottage. Light and uncomplicated, it suited the peaceful rhythms of coastal existence. Simon detailed the daily routine, a few local employment, shared dinners, and a community that trusted its own. For Victoria, it was ideal. She unpacked, placed trinkets on a windowsill, and peered at the pale streaks of sunset dancing on the shoreline. In chat with Simon, she enthused passionately about discovering beaches, meeting locals, and reveling in nature's splendor. On October 7 and 8, Victoria became increasingly interwoven into local life. She joined a modest birthday party for Mandy, the owner of the property. The event was warm and casual. Local folk shared home-cooked food, sang songs, and laughed late into the night. On October 9, she visited Hilda's home. During their half-hour chat, the two women gelled naturally, creating a bond rooted in conversation about life in Tasmania, their favorite beaches, and the possibilities of future travels. Later that evening, Victoria took alone walks along the beach, candlelight dancing over water, soft surf rustling seashells. Each walk brought deeper familiarity with her temporary home. October 10 found Victoria again roaming the nearby area, a simple gesture of curiosity and solace. She nodded to passing fishermen, greeted surfers dragging boards, and witnessed life unfolding down the shore. Through supper, she conversed with Simon about future excursions to national parks. They anticipated a hypothetical day out with Hilda, a future bright, free, and enchanted by coastal wonders. At 8:10 a.m. on October 11th, Victoria rose early. She requested a little tote bag from Simon for her walk and breakfasted with him, concealing excitement about a calm walk to the beach. At around 9 a.m., she departed. A sunny morning welcomed her, and she was spotted heading boldly toward the shore. Witness sightings by 10 a.m. By 10 a.m., many neighbors noticed her sunbathing some 700 meters south of the main entrance, near the Surfside Hotel. Hilda, jogging nearby, observed her from a distance and considered joining but chose not to, an excruciating decision she later said still haunts her. Discovery of the body. Margaret's walking routine. At around 1:30 p.m., Margaret, a local Lothario who was walking her dog along the familiar seashore near Freshwater Creek, spotted a strange sight. Far out, she noticed something strewn on the sand, partially scoured by the water. Alert and bewildered, she approached, and tragedy hit. Terrifying discovery. There, half buried by tide, lay a woman in a state of undress. The waves lapped gently against her. Margaret, a lady accustomed to beach views but never this, stood motionless, heart pumping, mind racing. She recognized human form, and immediately raced toward surrounding cottages for aid. Two local men led her back to the coast. The sight they encountered verified Margaret's fear. It was undoubtedly a dead woman. Panicked, they phoned the authorities. Forensic findings and the brutality revealed jibes of crime scene reports. As police and forensic teams arrived, the scene lay ominous. Victoria possessions, bangle, sunglasses, handbag, ring, watch, shoes, were strewn across the sand. The body was half submerged, partially dressed in a bra and one shoe, fragments of a terrible event. Investigators documented 16 or 17 stab wounds, including 2 to the heart. Her face was contused and swollen, teeth were broken, and her arms bore defensive wounds, an evocative description of a final battle. A brief conflict had spilled into the open beach, an ambush that ended in brutality. Evidence mishandled, yet in the aftermath, major blunders hampered the probe. Police cast just one footprint, poorly, despite other prints evident in the sand. They failed to maintain other imprints that might have connected to footwear. The body was transferred under a sheet without stronger restrictions around the location. No forensic pathologist arrived soon, and images and proper documentation were restricted or missing. Evidence was contaminated by beachgoers stepping through scene lines. Experts at the time regretted the carelessness. Possibilities to collect critical clues, shoe pattern, hair fibers, fibers entrained in sand, vanished into unknowable depth and public pollution. Rumors and investigative leads. The mafia theory? One weird story claimed a mafia hit, linked to Marco, Victoria's father, who had investigated organized crime in Italy. But without substantive linkages to Tasmania, investigators disregarded the hypothesis as speculative and unfounded. Links to previous disappearances. Some pointed to a grim precedent. In March 1993, German cyclist Nancy Grunwald vanished on the same island state. Seen last at 11 a.m. While cycling along the Tasman Highway, she actually disappeared. The location, coastal, wooded, calm, mirrored Victoria Beach environment. Though enticing parallels existed, tourist, young woman, disappearance, no verified connection surfaced. The four main suspects after the murder of Victoria Cafasso, authorities examined hundreds of people. Eventually, they reduced their focus to four key suspects, each of whom acted suspiciously or were connected to the region around the time of her death. Here's a breakdown of who they are and why they became suspects. The surfer, unknown man. This individual has never been identified. Witnesses observed him jogging or running on the beach where Victoria was last seen sunbathing. He was described as around 6 feet tall, in his mid-20s, athletic and wearing surfing clothes. He was seen leaving the beach area in a light-colored Subaru station wagon after the time of the murder. Police believe he may have been involved since his conduct and timing fit the murder window, but they have never been able to find him. The fisherman, Tony Kirkland. Tony Kirkland was a local fisherman. He has a history of strange or suspicious conduct. He once asked a local woman, "What's the fastest way off the beach?" which aroused worries. Around the time Victoria was killed, numerous ladies reported their underwear and items stolen from washing lines. Tony was also accused of stalking women, and in 1998 he was served with a restraining order. He relished being in the spotlight and chatted to the media about the case. Although many people felt he was unusual, authorities later ruled him out as a suspect. They no longer believe he committed the murder. The biker, Gary Holmes. Gary Holmes was a local man who loves motorbikes. After Victoria murder, many noticed he was behaving tense and jittery. He presented various stories regarding where he was that day. He had wounds and bruises, which could have resulted from a fight. He claimed the injuries were from a domestic quarrel or from punching a door, but it wasn't very convincing. Police probed him closely, but eventually cleared him. He was no longer considered a suspect. The doctor, Dr. Roman Hassel, Drive. Hassel was a Czech-born doctor living in Tasmania. He had recently been out of prison for threatening his wife and was known to have a bizarre preoccupation with knives. He said police he was home ill the day Victoria was murdered, but no one could validate his alibi. His girlfriend then revealed he was near the shore that day, contradicting his earlier story. He also allegedly told someone, "Maybe I did it. I don't remember." Even though nothing has been confirmed, authorities have never ruled him out. He's still seen as a prospective suspect. Community impact and emotional fallout. Fear and distrust. News of Victoria's terrible murder shattered trust. A community once known by open doors and pleasant smiles turned wary and secluded. Marriages frayed under paranoia. Families that formerly called the area home began to vanish. The families grieved. Victoria's parents traveled from Italy, bringing deep sadness. After witnessing the seashore where their daughter's life ended, they chose to bury her in Italy. Tragically, her father passed away within weeks, his grief no doubt tremendous. Mother Sophia remained, waiting for justice that never arrived. Investigative dead end and case review. Police response. The original track became dead within weeks. Over 300 interviews found no eyewitnesses of the attack. Theories abounded but lacked charging-worthy proof. Police resources were reallocated as the remote island confronted the 1996 Port Arthur massacre, another tragedy that thrust Tasmania in global headlines. Revisiting the case over ensuing decades, Tasmania police performed periodic reviews. They invested in sophisticated forensic technology, DNA profiling, personal item tracking, but nothing tied solidly to suspects. Without undegraded physical evidence, personal possessions, clothes, or unambiguous crime scene prints, the investigators produced no breakthroughs. Legal hurdles ahead. The senior coroner spoke publicly. So many early blunders had damaged the strength of any future prosecution. With poor or corrupted evidence, even identification of a suspect would likely not stand in court, lacking confession. The unanswered question: who was the surfer? The identity of the man observed racing across the beach remains unknown, a person seen but not located. What happened to her clothes? The bikini bottoms, towel, and t-shirt were never recovered, disappearance that reflects a killer storing keepsakes. Is the doctor genuinely responsible? The enigmatic statement, "maybe I did," and contradicting beat statements make him a terrifying suspect, however proof is circumstantial. Did anything tie to Nancy Grunwald's disappearance? Shared topography and patterns suggest either chance or a serial predator, but no verifiable relationship exists. Legacy and final thoughts: this terrible case remains one of Tasmania's greatest mysteries. Locals still consider closing doors a precaution. Families depart early, haunted by the prospect that the murderer still walks their neighborhoods. Victoria's story endures, not simply as a cold case file, but as a living narrative of a young lady taken too soon. Her charm, her dreams, and her unsolved disappearance continue to resound across that shoreline. Despite time's passage, hope is not gone. Tasmania Police continues to receive tips. Hopes hinge on new technology, better DNA, better tip-offs, better ability to see the invisible. Yet the road ahead is daunting. Nearly 30 years of lost momentum and deteriorated signals complicate resolution. Only one thing remains certain: Victoria was an adventurous, adored soul whose life was ended before her time. Whether in a confession, new proof, or fortuitous remembrance, it may someday provide closure. Until that day, her tragedy remains carved in the heart of Tasmania, a terrible reminder of innocence lost and justice sought. Word count note: this retelling extends upon the original while maintaining well within the 3,200 word limit. The total is approx. 2,400 to 2,500 words, yet gives a fuller, more nuanced story for readers or listeners wanting a comprehensive grasp of the case. Let me know if you'd like further expansion, perhaps deeper suspect profiles, direct comments, or forensic details added. And it gets us to the end of Victoria Cafasso's terrible and haunting story. A young woman full of life, intelligence, and promise, cut down in broad daylight, on a calm beach, in a town that's never been the same since. Despite decades passing, her killer has never been brought to justice. 4 suspects. Countless theories. And a community still lives in fear and uncertainty. Do you suppose one of the suspects was responsible? Or might the true killer still be out there, hidden in plain sight? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this case compelling, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next deep dive into the world's most mysterious crimes. Thank you for watching, and remember, justice delayed is not justice denied. Stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.